Askar Askarov. Kai Kara France beat him. I think he's
Oh yeah, he's
super
too one
overrated.
dimensional.
He can't do it. He doesn't do any damage on the ground. I think he's overrated.
Okay, I actually like that one.
Kai Kara France isn't even that. I mean, he's good, but he's not like that amazing. And yeah,
Yeah. What
people were
about
hyping up
the?
Askar Askarov like he could be a champion someday. Fuck that.
Yeah, they made him a huge favor against Kai Car France. That
Now
was
let's do
ridiculous.
bantamweight. Who's the most
Bantamweight.
overrated?
Bantamweight. I think it's Cheetah. I think Cheetah.
Honestly, man, I think I mean I think it's got to be Cheeto as well.
But you know why it's Cheeto? It's because like people were like calling me crazy for this, and like the reason it's like it makes complete sense. You're losing to an old washed up Frankie Edgar.
For
Like
like
listen to
two
that.
and a half rounds.
Just listen to that sentence for a second. You're losing to old washed up Frankie Edgar. You're losing to an old washed up Dominic Cruz, and you win
But he
those fights
wasn't losing
because
to Cruz though.
yeah, he was.
I
He
have to
was
disagree
losing.
with that.
I thought he was losing that fight, or
He
at
was
least.
getting he was dropping Dominic Cruz. Like for
But then
example, he had two knockdowns before that fourth round in different rounds. Like he had won a few rounds based on knockdowns.
I think it was 2 rounds. Like, yeah, I don't
He had
know.
knocked he was not I don't think he was losing that fight. I saw Dominic Cruz doing well, but he wasn't losing. I think his
I thought he
performance
was
against
losing,
Cruz was
but
pretty decent.
I don't know. I thought
But
he
I'm
made
just comparing
Cruz.
him to the other
I
guys.
thought he made Cruz look a lot better than he really is. You know what I'm saying?
But that's also kind of his style. His style is to kind of get hit
But
and
that's
like
not going to work against the top guys. You know what I mean? Like, do you think that's going to work against a Peter Yan? You think that's going to work against a
the
Sean
thing is
O'Malley?
about
You
Marlon,
know?
he's so tough. That's why I think he's overrated
But
because I feel like a lot of it comes from his toughness.
okay, yeah, exactly. Like, I think if you take a guy who, like, any of those top five guys who's young, whose chin is good, I mean, or at least not washed like these old 35-year-olds, 37-year-olds, and who throws a decent amount of volume, he beats him. Truly beats him. Like Corey Sandhagen beats him, in my opinion. He throws too much volume. He has enough power. He's got enough power. He's got good enough chin. Peter Yan throws enough volume, good enough boxer. I think who else? I think any of those guys. Alger, I think takes him down and beats him up for 5 rounds. Like
What about Marab?
honestly, oh yeah, I think Marab beats him. Honestly, I do because I think Marab would hold him against the cage and just beat him up. You know what I mean? Like he's too hittable, Cheeto Vera. Like he's so hittable, and
Yeah.
you can only rely on your toughness against certain guys. Like you really think you can rely on that toughness against a guy who actual power? You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't. Like you
What
can't
about
rely
Song
against
Yadong?
what?
Song Yadong.
You think you can beat him?
No, what do you think of Song Yadong? I think he's really
I
good.
think
I
he's
think he's
good,
pretty
but
good.
I think like they tried rushing him a little bit too quick against like a Corey Sandhagen. You know what I
He
mean?
had a good performance. I think he could maybe be a future
Yeah.
future champ.
Who do you think wins, him or what's his
Cheeto?
name? Cheeto?
Honestly, maybe Song Yadong.
I mean, I just think Cheeto's so hittable. You know what I'm saying? And like the reason it didn't affect him in those other fights is because the guys he was fighting against were old and had no power anymore. You know what I'm saying? So that's
Yeah.
why I think Cheeto's the most overrated. But
Okay, let's move to
featherweight.
featherweight. Who I think
Let's
it's
hear your
Ortega.
featherweight. Ortega?
I think it's Ortega all day. I mean, think about it like this. Ortega's last win was the Korean Zombie in 2020. And not only was it 2020, but this is Korean Zombie when he was already a little older, a little more washed up. This is the Korean Zombie's fight that he had 2 fights previous to getting knocked out by Volkanovski. And before that, he fought Max Holloway, got destroyed. After the Korean Zombie fight, takes a year off, fights Volkanovski, gets destroyed. Then comes back to fight Yair Rodriguez, gets destroyed in the first round, then has an injury. And before the Korean Zombie fight, which was in 2020, his fight before that was Max, which was 2018. And before that, his fight before that was 2018 against Frankie Edgar. He knocked him out. Like, I'm not convinced. Sure, Frankie Edgar was still pretty good at the time where Ortega knocked him out, but this is still Frankie Edgar. Like, he's not on the same level as the guys that are at the top of the division now. And I just think Ortega's, I didn't get to see his fight play out with
He was
what's his
losing
name?
though. Yeah, yeah.
With
He
the
was
Iyer,
losing.
but I think he was losing. And I just think he's overrated because he's ranked so highly. And I don't think
Yeah.
he should be that
He's like
high.
top three for no reason or something, you
Yeah.
know? I agree with that. Another guy who comes to mind is Calvin Cater. Like he's talked about as one of the better guys in that division. He's talked about as a guy if you get a win against him, you may be fighting for the title. And I think that's just crazy to me. Like Like when you think of when you think of Calvin Kattar, what do you think about? Let me ask you, what's the first thing you think about?
I think about boxing and
but no, but like what fight do you think about? The Max
I
Holloway
think
fight.
about his fight with
Holloway. I think about the
yeah, but I
Holloway
also
fight.
think about his fight with Giga. I think about his fight with what's his name? It was on the same card as Tony Gaethje, his fight with Jeremy Stevens, where he knocked him out with the elbow. I will say this. I think he sure for sure is a little bit overrated, but he beat a lot of guys. So, he's beaten a lot of
But he's not a
guys.
top guy at the division.
No, I think he loses to Holloway. I think he loses to Yair. I think he loses to Volk.
I think he loses to Ortega.
No,
I think Ortega
I
submits
would
him.
pick him.
Or
That's the determining factor of who's more overrated. I think that
make that fucking fight, UFC.
that's a great fight.
That is
Dude,
a great
see
fight
that
to
one.
make.
But he beat Josh Emmett pretty much, and I think
So
that's a great fight. Whoever wins that
Ortega.
one is whoever loses the more overrated. I think I'd pick Calvin to win it.
I'd pick Ortega.
You think Ortega pieces
I think
Calvin
Ortega would
up?
submit him. I think he would submit him. I think he'd catch
Submit
him in
him.
that
Okay,
position.
damn. All right.
Yeah.
Ortega, I mean, here's the thing. Both of these guys have good. There's not many guys at featherweight that are that overrated, to be fair. Like, they're usually pretty good in that division. So
Yeah.
I think that 150, I think 185 is a ton of overrated guys.
We'll
but let's
get to
move
that
to
in a sec.
55.
55.
Who's the most overrated 55? I have a hot take for mine.
Let's hear it.
Mateusz Gamrot.
Okay. Why do you
I think he's a little overrated because he lost to Arman Tsarukyan. And I know it's a close fight, but I still think he shouldn't have won that one. He lost to Beneil Dariush, who's a good fighter, but I've watched his striking. I've seen a lot of his fights now.
No power.
His striking is very sloppy. He doesn't have a lot of power. It works for setting up takedowns, but it's not effective in and of itself. Like, he can't really hurt anyone on the feet.
No.
And sure, it
no
can be effective
submission.
in a 5-rounder, but I have to see more. Like, I've seen him beat Jeremy Stevens, who's a featherweight that moved up, that was undersized, that was past his prime. I've seen him beat some other guys in a really impressive fashion, but I'm looking at him in the grand scheme of the top guys in that division. He's very good, but I think he's a little overrated. People speak of him as if he could be a champion or I think we need to. He's good. I think someone could be both good and overrated, by the way.
Yeah.
So I think he's good, but I just think he's a tiny bit overrated by the fans. Because first of all, he's not threatening on the feet. He's not as effective on the feet as other grapplers with not a lot of power. Colby is an example of someone who may have worse jiu-jitsu than Gamrot, but he's got better wrestling and he's got better striking. And Gamrot's striking needs a lot of work. Who do you have for 155?
I don't mind that now that you say it. I mean, look, the easy answer is obviously a Chandler, but I mean, I think everyone.
Oh yeah, I think people know the Chandler.
Yeah, so I would say Justin Gaethje.
Gaethje's a great pick. I would say Gaethje's even more overrated.
People consider Gaethje one of the top guys in the division, but based off what?
Who has he beat last that was impressive?
He beat a washed up a guy in Chandler who we all say is overrated.
And he was a terrible fight IQ. Chandler could have maybe beat him.
Chandler
could maybe beat everyone.
Yeah, literally, besides Islam. But
besides Islam.
Yeah, I think Gaethje, I mean, he hasn't really beaten anybody good. He beat up he beat Michael Johnson. He beat who else did he beat? Did he beat up who?
He beat Edson Barboza, who's a little bit
he lost to Dustin.
That's his best win, but he beat Cowboy and James Vick, who has the worst chin in UFC history.
Yeah. He lost to Eddie Alvarez. He lost to Dustin Poirier. He lost to Charles Oliveira. He lost to who else? And he beat Tony. That I would say, but Tony was washed.
Tony was a little bit.
Yeah,
he was starting to just decline a little bit.
So
and that was closer than people thought.
He hasn't, and he almost got finished in that fight. If we talked about that Alex Pereira. What if there's 30 more? If that happened in another time of the fight, that shot. What if that Tony Ferguson uppercut happened in the beginning of a fight of a round or the middle of the round? He would have gotten finished right there. So you know what I'm saying. So I think Justin Gaethje is the most overrated, and then but yeah, I think.
What do you think about welterweight? I'd say my most overrated at welterweight is I can't say Jorge because
I'm gonna say Colby. I think Colby.
All right, I don't know if it's Colby though, because Colby, here's the thing about Colby, despite his resume not being that good, he still looks really good to me in his fights. Like
But
when I watch him fight, I think of him as a really good fighter. Like he just has a lot of skills. So a little bit of my overrated is like watching their fights as well. Brian Ortega, his striking doesn't impress me that much.
Yeah.
His grappling is overrated. He can't get to the positions that often where he can have success. Colby's very good and effective. And to be honest, like Masvidal has good takedown defense, and
Does he though? I mean,
he has good.
like,
He's very good takedown
based
and
off
submission
like what?
defense.
Like he gets whenever he fought against a wrestler, he got taken down.
But these are the two best wrestlers.
But like those are the only things we can compare for. You know what I'm saying? And
True, but I
he's
mean,
not
for
any of
example,
them.
Damian Maya had him down in their fight and couldn't submit him. Like he has good grappling defense, on the ground too. I think here's the thing. I think someone who's even more
And Masvidal's
overrated
older now, also.
is Sean Brady.
I mean, I think we all think.
Yeah,
He's
I think we all
trash
saw it. I
anyway.
mean, that was my original take. Sean Brady is the most overrated fighter ever, in my opinion. I think he's
Dude, that
I think he's
hype was
terrible.
for no reason.
He's a
whatsoever.
jujitsu. He's a
That was
jujitsu
just
guy.
like the weirdest like hype of all time, I would have to say.
He's
Like,
literally
why,
a jujitsu
why
guy.
was
That's
everyone
it.
thinking Sean Brady was going to be actually good? Like I did never understood it. And we said it
Yeah.
here first.
He got
We called it
finished by
here first.
Bilal.
Like there was just no reason for people to like what about his fighting, his game like was led us to like would lead people to believe that he'd be a good fighter, like a great fighter. Like there's
Yeah.
nothing, you know what I'm saying? He's a shitty striker and with no power. He's got like okay just jujitsu, but he's got no submission game in his arsenal. His wrestling like is like okay. Like he just was like there was nothing about his game that like ever, in my opinion, like showed like elite fighter or like said elite fighter. And I don't know what people were seeing, and I guess we were right. So I think Sean Brady, but at the same time, a lot of people think he is. Don't really think of him as anything anymore after that loss. I'd probably maybe say Bilal also. I don't think Bilal is a bad answer because I think Bilal loses to all those guys at the top.
But the thing is, no
division.
one really overrates Bilal.
That is true. So I'm going to stick with Colby. I think the reason I think Colby is just because we base his career off his two fights against Usman where he lost both those fights. Like I think a lot of people like, so that's kind of like saying that's basing Gilbert Burns his fight, like his level against his fight against Chimaev. I feel like, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So I think Colby, I do think Colby's a good fighter, but we just don't have anything else to base it off.
I agree. I
of.
think Colby's a little overrated. Like people think he would beat Hamzat or
But
like
based off
he would
what?
destroy Hamzat. Like I don't.
You know, like
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Okay.
Like,
What do you think about 185? I think it's very clear.
Marvin Vettori.
Marvin.
Yeah, and I think the thing about him,
I think that's just based on
tough,
like
you know what I mean?
how shitty he looks in his
Yeah.
fights.
Yeah, I just think he's just tough, you know what I mean? Like that's his only skill set. Like he's a mid striker, mid grappler. Like he's kind of strong. He's got a good gas tank. He's just got a good gas tank in his
And it's tough, good chin.
And it's tough, and that's it. That's all it is. You know what I mean? There's no skill. That's not like really like a skill, you know what I mean? Like so I think Marvin is a good one. Another guy, I mean, Paulo Costa, like the guy hasn't.
I think he's a little overrated.
The guy hasn't beaten a single guy who's still in the UFC.
Yeah, that's.
Wait,
so
let me ask
pathetic.
you another guy. Sean Strickland, I think he's very overrated. I think you have him face anybody who's like a decent striker. He loses. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But let me ask you something. Who would win, Sean Strickland or Paulo Costa? They fought. Who do you think would win?
Wow, honestly, I think honestly, I don't know. I think that's a great fight, but I
That's a
think
good
maybe
fight.
even Sean Strickland.
Really though,
Dude, I
don't
think
know.
Sean Strickland is a good boxer, and Costa's got really, really short arms and his power's overrated. I feel like Sean Strickland would beat him by decision.
Really,
Costa doesn't have that much power, and Sean Strickland, it's unless you're Pereira or a really high level striker, he's hard to hit in the head.
yeah, he is a hard guy to hit.
And he has very good grappling and takedown defense. So
Yeah.
I don't think Costa would be able to take him down.
So you think it's Whitaker?
I think Strickland would beat him. To be
So you
fair,
think
I really
Vettori-
think Costa's overrated.
Vettori, Costa, and
Like Whitaker, I think Whitaker is gonna kill Paulo Costa. I think he's gonna destroy.
He's gonna
I think
finish
he's
him?
gonna finish Paulo Costa
finish
because
him. I think he's gonna
he
win.
doesn't have the chin that Vettori has.
I think he's gonna. It's gonna be a 3-0. I think he's gonna win by
You
decision.
think I could see that too, but I don't think Costa has a chance in that one.
No, I don't think he's gonna win, but I think he's gonna lose 3-0. You know.
What about light heavyweight? Most overrated.
There's a
It can't be
lot. So
Jan
like,
anymore. I know it can't be.
no,
That
Jan lost. I know. Didn't I say Jan was the most overrated?
you did at one, but
I changed
yeah.
my mind. Jan it really impressed me the other day. I'm gonna say Magomed and Goliath. That's who I'm
Damn,
gonna say
dude.
because I'm gonna say that because like he was thought about as I'm not saying he's not a great fighter. He was just thought about as this Terminator kind of guy, like a Khabib in Islam, one of those Dagestanian guys, like these elite Dagestanian guys that are so much better than everybody else. But he showed that he was like more than just human. You know what I mean? Like Chimaev definitely in that Burns fight showed that he was human, but it didn't seem like they cracked the code of him. You know what I'm saying? I feel like with that fight, like there was like you cracked the code about him. I feel like, you know what I mean? You just go with those crazy, you go with leg kicks and you beat his legs up and that's
But
it.
that's the thing, though. I think it's just Jan's legs, though, because even Anthony Smith tried to leg kick him a lot
But
and got
Anthony
checked.
Smith's garbage, you know?
But Jan has really powerful leg kicks and like different kinds of shins.
So maybe
I
it's
think
just
who's even more overrated is Rakic.
yeah, racket.
I saw Rakic has really ugly striking. And his leg kicks are effective, but not against a guy like Jan or Magomed who know how to check leg kicks.
But the reason I say Magomed though is because I just think that like he was just thought out to be this guy who was just
Yeah.
like unbeatable and like you can't hurt him like Terminator like and he got hurt really badly against a guy who was like 40 years old.
Do you think
know
he
what
could
I'm
ever
saying?
be a champion?
Magomed?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I think he still could be.
I think he still could. I just don't think he's like this unstoppable force
Yeah.
that we thought he was thought he was supposed
What
to
about
be. That's why I
Rakic?
say he's overrated. Like
Do you
he's
think
still a great fighter,
yeah.
you know?
Do you think Anthony Smith's overrated or people rate him properly?
I just don't think people care about Anthony Smith. You know
Yeah,
what
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
saying?
yeah.
Like,
I'd love to say he's the most overrated, but I think people
but nobody
recognize
cares
him.
about him. I'm sorry. Like that dude sucks overall. Like he's a terrible analyst. Like he's a terrible commentator.
I like him. I like him. I like
He's
him
a nice
personally,
guy, but like he just is such a like I don't know. There's just something about him. Like he just bothers me.
He's a little bit delusional. What do you think about heavyweight?
Heavyweight.
I think, dude, it's got to be Tai Tuivasa.
Tuivasa, but I feel like after that fight, I feel like people like kind of like.
I think there are people that are still thinking Tai Tuivasa, like, would go out there and smoke a lot of guys. Like,
yeah, I mean,
I can't think of anyone else that's overrated.
Yeah, I would say Tai Tuivasa because he's kind of just like one, like he can only knock people out. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of it. Derek Lewis, I mean, but they're kind of like
he's not really overrated.
Yeah, like nobody really thinks of Derek
people
Lewis
always thought he was kind of shitty.
So yeah, I'm gonna say I would say Tai Tuivasa also. I mean, he's literally has nothing else to his game other than like possibly knocking someone else. He's very hittable. That's the thing about him also. He's very hittable. You know what I mean? Like he got clipped by Greg Hardy. You know what I'm saying? Like that's pathetic. So like, yeah, I would say Tuivasa too.